Michael Jordan is not only the best basketball player, but he's the most exciting basketball player to ever play.
Tatum fires away, pumps it in, 51 for Jason Tatum.
The Big Three NBA podcast is powered by Prizepicks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. Hello, folks. Welcome to another edition of the Big Three NBA podcast. I am joined today by the one and only Keith Pompey of the Philly Inquirer. What's going on with you, Keith?
What's popping? What's good, bro? How you doing?
I'm glad you got the memo. Keep it nice and light with the sweaties, with the hoodies.
Oh, okay.
Nice. See, I had to see Gary Washburn just don't read the memo. He always come with some whack outfit whenever we're doing our podcast. So I'm glad you got the memo.
Gary be suited and booted, huh?
Man, listen, you know how G is. That's that's another story, another day. But today we're going to talk about the Philadelphia 76ers, team you cover. You've been covering them for a while. Great stuff. Check out his work at the Philadelphia Inquirer online. But we're just going to jump right into it. That's the team the Celtics are going to be opening up the post-All-Star break against. And obviously, things haven't gone quite the way the Sixers thought they would this year, to say the least. What's the latest on Joel Embiid and Paul George at this point? Because obviously those were two big factors that many of us were expecting and anticipating were going to be big deals for them this year. And obviously it hasn't worked out that way. But what's the latest on them and their health and the status and all that kind of stuff?
Well, I will say that all three of them practiced yesterday. The thing with Joel, let's start with Joel. As of yesterday, as of this morning, rather, Joel's status for the game against the Celtics has not been determined. Right. Typically, Joel is always listed as questionable on the injury report, and typically when you see that, a lot of times you assume that he's going to play unless he goes through his pregame workout and either decides he doesn't want to play or he has a setback. Right. So you assume that he's going to play. The thing about him the most is, the team is saying that Joel does not need surgery. But Joel goes on the Sunday before the All-Star break. He goes on TV and tells Lisa Salters on ABC that he may need surgery this offseason. And then what happens from there, the Sixers are like, no, that's not true. Sources are reaching out to me saying, there's no surgery needed at this particular time. But the way that I take that, Sherrod, is I take that as if, like, okay, if this season isn't going the way it is, I might shut it down from the Joel standpoint. Mm-hmm. So then we go to Paul George. So Paul George has had various ailments. Now, getting back to Joel, so people know, Joel had meniscus surgery last season. Mm-hmm. It was in February of 2024. Well, a year later, he still has swelling in his knee. He has other injuries. So whenever he plays over an extended period of time, the swelling comes back and they have to shut him down for a couple weeks. That's what's going on. Now, PG, he hyperextended his left knee twice. He had 2 bone bruises, right? In addition to that, now he tore a tendon in his left pinky finger, his non-shooting hand. He has groin injuries. He has a lot of different ailments, and he's been struggling mightily. I mean, the last game that he played, he shot 1 for 7, 0 for 5 on threes. He had 2 points. And over the last 5 games, he's been averaging 10 points. So afterwards, he, of course, in Philly, you know how they do in Philly, how we do. The fans turned on him and destroyed him. Mm-hmm. And then the next day, a report comes out of ESPN saying that Paul George had to be shot up or had to get an injection just to play those last 5 games. And that's not good when you talk about the last 5 games were against Miami, Detroit, Milwaukee, Toronto, and Brooklyn. Like 3 of those teams you shouldn't have to get shot up to play well against. So when you say what's the latest, I am waiting for a week or so, maybe, where, and it may not happen, but when you hear stuff like this coming out, you're waiting for the team to make an announcement that either one or two of these guys are going to be shut down for the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Because how can you play in the playoffs or play in tournament and playoffs if we're already talking about one guy needs off-season surgery and the other one is getting shot up to play against the Brooklyn Nets? Like, it just doesn't sound right.
Yeah, it doesn't. And it's scary if you're a Sixers fan, because not only are you talking about, a couple of really good players, you're talking about the foundation, basically, of your team. And Maxey obviously is part of that too. But, Paul George, Joel Embiid, you look at just their career up to this point, both are probably going to be in the Hall of Fame. So you're talking about two future Hall of Famers who you have no idea what you're going to get, not even from one period of time to the next, but from one game to the next. And when I look at their situation, Keith, it seems like they really have to make that decision. Are we going to just basically try to get into the Cooper Flag sweepstakes and try to get a really good player in the draft? Or are we going to try to cut and paste and put this, ragamuffin squad together, and hopefully they all can be healthy at the same time and maybe make some noise in the playoffs? How is this playing out with the front office? I mean, do they seem to be leaning one way or the other with how they want to go forward with these guys?
No, it's crazy because there was a point where, like, they wanted to see how they did on a road trip, like the Christmas road trip or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to see how they would do on that one. And they go to Boston and they get a great win against the Celtics, right? Mm-hmm. And then from there, they had a couple other games where they played particularly well. So everyone was like, okay, we'll see how this goes. And they go on another trip and they played kind of well, right? And when you look back at it, you say, look at the 76ers. You say, okay, they have a quality win against the Celtics. The Celtics came back the second time they played and battled back from a 16-point deficit to pull out a win. But then they also had a good win against Cleveland. They had a close loss against Denver, right? So you look at it and you say to yourself that, okay, when we have the big three, when we get them all healthy, we feel as though that we can make a run. And if I'm the Boston Celtics and if I'm the Cleveland Cavaliers, no offense to them, but I would rather play the Chicago Bulls than the 76ers in the first round. Like, let's just get it out, right? Everybody know that.
For sure.
But then all of a sudden, it just seems like things just start unraveling a little bit. And here's something else. We keep talking about that Cooper Flag thing. So the Sixers are probably the most unlucky team. We talk about the process and we talk about all this other stuff. Like, you got Ben Simmons, you got Markelle Fultz, but at the same time now you look at it and you say, well, maybe I could have drafted someone else, right? I mean, the Jason Tatum thing is never going to go away. Jaylen Brown, at the time, it seemed like the Sixers got the best guy, but that didn't go away. So now we talk about the tanking thing. So even though they have they're tied for the sixth worst record in the NBA, the pick is top 6 protected. So which means it's going to go to OKC. In order for them to be guaranteed to get a top 6 pick, they have to finish with the second, at least the second worst record. And aside from that, I don't care how many percentage points it goes to. With the Sixers' luck, they might be outside looking in. So if you tank and you do all that, and OKC gets the pick, now get this. This is another thing that keeps giving. When they got rid of Al Horford's contract,
right?
Like whatchamacallit said, okay, we'll take it, but you have to give us the 2025 first round pick. That's what OKC said. So as always, it goes, I hate to say it, and then the Celtics are like, thank you, we're going to get our man back from OKC. But at the same time, so you look at it and you say to yourself, like, man, they got bad luck. So, you can sit back and you can tank all you want. But at the same time, you probably may not get that pick at all. So that's what they have to do. Now, again, if they are a healthy team, but if they have the right mindset, they can do work. but it seems like they were playing better before Embiid and Paul George came back. The ball was moving. Maxey was getting his 30. Kelly Oubre was getting 20 something. Dudes was like hustling, playing hard. Now you look at it and it's more or less Paul George is off in the corner, not doing anything. Joel is taking a lot of shots, Maxey too, and everybody else is just standing around. So it's like they're running out of time to get this thing together, man. Really. So if I'm Daryl Morey, I don't know what to do right about now. I'll be honest.
Yeah, and you know, whenever you see a team struggling like this for things that, you know, aren't necessarily X's and O's, but just having healthy bodies, you're looking for that one bright spot. And when I look at the Sixers team, it has to be Maxey. And I'm just curious, Keith, how is he handling all this? Because, you know, he didn't come to the team with all the praise of like Joel and even Ben Simmons and guys like that. He kind of had to earn his way into that core group. And now that he's there, he's looking around and it's like, damn, it's like an echo chamber. Ain't nobody in here with me. It's just me. How is he dealing with the struggles that this team has had this year? Because I know this is not what he was expecting.
You know, initially he wasn't dealing very well with it. You know what I mean? He'll admit that. Like, you know, I think that, you know how it is sometimes when you feel like, okay, I'm the only one, so I got to do too much. And then when you lose, you're taking the losses hard. I think he was pressing a little bit. And he admitted he lost the joy. Because, you know, when you see Maxey, like, it's funny. Like, you go to see Maxey playing the Celtics, and you see him over there talking smack to the Celtics coaches.
He does.
You know, Sam Cassell, it's like, we in trouble. Just because he's having fun. And Sam, I hate to say it, Sam, I mean, I like to say it, Sam did a big part of developing this guy to who he is today, Sam Cassell. So when he's laughing and joking with him, then you know he's like ready. But early in the season, he wasn't doing that. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't doing anything. So I think he's doing with it well, doing better. The one thing I will say about Maxey is, you know, Maxey, I'm not going to say he's self-made, but I am going to say that he's kind of like a little bit of old school. Like, he's a guy that had a chance to transfer from South Garland High School, which is a public school, and go to a private powerhouse, national powerhouse. But he wanted to be with his friends. He wanted to help them win a state championship. So when you look at some of his closer friends, best friends on the team now, of course, Joel is his guy and PG, but some of the guys are like the undrafted guys, the guys who like worked hard and do stuff. And he likes being around those guys. So he celebrates them. So whenever they do well, he says things. So he's not one of those guys where you look at it and he's like, look, what y'all doing here? Like, I'm an all-star, I'm a max player. You got me playing with these dudes and these other guys. Nah, he's not that type of guy. What he wants to do is he wants to uplift and he wants to elevate them. But he does realize now, before he was trying to do too much. He was taking a lot of bad shots. He was doing a lot of crazy things. But now he's like, listen, it's all about me. I'm going to get mine, but I'm also going to get everybody else involved. That's the best way for us to win.
Yeah, and it's clear that his game is growing, and you know, I'm curious about the whole Sam Cassell mention, because it escaped my mind the fact that those two have worked together. Before we get into that conversation, Keith, I want to just take here a little bill pen here and want to tell folks about our good friends at Prizepicks, which is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prizepicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prizepicks, which is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. With basketball season heating up, Prizepicks is the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports teams play. And again, with weekly promotions like Taco Tuesday, where you can get 25% discounts on your player projections, and it's real easy to get involved. You just sign up today, get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. And how do you get in? It's real simple. You download the app today. You use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. And again, just download the app. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks, run your game. Now, Keith, I wanted to pick up where you were mentioning Sam Cassell. Because Sam I Am, it seems like every offseason there's a list of like, here's assistant coaches who should be head coaches or should be in the mix. And Sam seems to be in that group consistently. What is it about Sam you think makes him someone that there's always talk about him becoming a head coach? Like, what do you think would make him someone that could be a pretty good head coach?
I think, you know what, Sam is one of the main thing is that, first of all, he's a smart guy. But I think that the one thing that makes him a head coach is that he's one of the guys that the players of this era respect. And you know, it's a lot of dudes that played in the league before that they don't respect. And let's be real, because like they always talking about, when I played, we did this, we did that. And they're like, come on, man, I would give you 40, right? But Sam, for whatever it is, his personality, you can relate to him. I mean, I like Sam a lot. He's the type of dude, you know, sometimes you be around the NBA circles and you'll see a coach and like you have to seek him out. Sam the type of dude be like, yo, what's up, Keith? How you doing, bro? We're like, he'll hunt me down.
Yep.
So, excuse me.
You're good.
His personality is what attracts players. And not only that, man, he knows how to play.
Right.
The thing about Sam was Sam made one all-star team. You look at him and you say to yourself that he wasn't the superstar,
right,
but he was a winner. Mm-hmm. He won 3 rings and he was the man. He just was one of those guys that he always played with other great players to where he didn't get it. And let's face it, was he the best point guard of his era? No. But at the same time, he was a winner. He's a pedigree. And I think that when you have guys like that, they are the best coaches, right? Because they can get more out of people. He's a great motivator. And let's face it, he's a smart guy. Like, you know, when Sam was with the 76ers, they wanted Doc, the fans wanted Doc and everybody fired, but they wanted Sam to stay to become the head coach. That's not how it was. It's like, get rid of Doc, get rid of all of them, but keep Sam. That's how when Philly are for him. They love Sam. He's a great coach and a great dude. But I think the players, the modern day players, respect him. They don't look at him as, like, no offense to Charles Barkley and Shaq and stuff like that, but you know, like, sometimes they call them haters on the show because they always comparing their era to what it is today. Sam doesn't get that from the players.
No, he doesn't. And I think the point you got about Sam's relatability is a really important one, because Sam really is, even for folks that don't even know him that well. I mean, like, I've known Sam for a long time, just covering NBA, and Sam has the ability to just almost kind of take down whatever guardedness that you might have about coaches and vice versa, and just kind of keep it 100. In a lot of ways, he's a reflection of the players from his era that are in coaching. I think about a guy like Corliss Williamson, for example. I've known Corliss for a long time, and Corliss has always been that way with me, where if we see each other, we'll have a conversation. And I think a lot of that has to do with just that particular generation. But I have this feeling that this is going to be Sam's last year in Boston. I think that especially if they get another chip, I think it's almost a given that he'll be gone then. But even if they don't, I still think it's time for Sam to get a chance to kind of, run his own ship. I was a little surprised that Charles Lee got that opportunity in Charlotte before Sam did, because the Celtics, I thought last year had at least 3 coaches that I could see not being around this year. And Sam, I thought, was at the top of that list. But Sam, he's going to get his shot. He's going to get his shot. And I think he'll do well. I think he'll do really well. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about, Keith, and we touched on it a little bit, but you know how it is. Whenever a team is underachieving or not having the kind of success, and regardless of why that's happening, ultimately there's going to be some finger pointing. And after people pointing at Joel and pointing at Paul, then they're going to say, well, what about Nick? What about Daryl? How are those two been as far as catching heat for the team struggles? I mean, are they getting a pass, or are they kind of feeling a little bit of warmth as well?
Nah, they're both catching heat. Like, they're both catching heat. Like, but if I'm Daryl, I wouldn't walk in the room. Like, I wouldn't walk if I see a match lit a little bit, somebody, like, I'm walking the other direction. But Nick, here's the deal. It's like, so it's hard now. Again, we all gonna look at Nick Nurse, and everybody gonna say, "Oh man, come on, bro. Like, you were supposed to be this innovator. You were supposed to be this great coach." But I don't have it on front of me, but it was either 35 or 36 different starting lineups they had this year.
Wow.
Right? You know what I mean? Now, Red Auerbach, love him to death. He couldn't do that with 35, 36, right? You know what I mean? Phil Jackson couldn't do it, right? So then you look at it and you have a team that's, what they did is they went up and they loaded up on a bunch of role players, and they got Paul George. But we all know the key for the 76ers to win, it has to be a healthy Joel Embiid. The dude only played 17 games, right? So you look at it. So when you say Nick Nurse, it's easy to say, okay, I didn't like that side out of bounds play, or I didn't like that zone they went in. Oh, why did he take this guy out, take that guy out? Come on, man. Like, if you don't have Joel Embiid and you got 36 or 37 different starting lineups, it's a struggle. Now, the person that deserves the smoke, and I hate to say this, is Daryl Morey. And the reason why is because, Paul George, I like Paul a lot as a person, great person, this and that. But whenever you go ahead and you give a guy $211.5 million 4-year contract, you got to be 100% sure that that's going to work. Because when we look at it, the Clippers didn't want to pay him that money.
Right.
And it's one of those things where, Sherrod, you've been covering this thing way longer than I have. When the people who have you don't want to pay you, and that's when you realize, okay, I need to do some investigation, because they were going into a brand new building, right, and they didn't want to pay him that extra year. So then on top of that, you look at the Joel Embiid situation. So Joel Embiid comes off a knee surgery. He comes back with the final 7 games. He's only able to play 5 of them because it looked like he re-aggravated his knee, messed it up. He goes to the Olympics. He's kind of like, he has one good game in the Olympics, right, which he played really well. But for the most part, he was a shell of himself. And then you give him a 3-year, $194 million extension. So we look at that and you say to yourself, like, you just made 2 moves to set the Sixers back for years. The last game that Paul George played in, it was like he was 1 for 7 shooting with 2 points. Maxey didn't play. Embiid didn't play. And I was shocked. For the first 12 minutes, he only had 2 shot attempts. Now, that was supposed to be spread the floor, let me go, and let me get it. So when you look at it, yes, Daryl Morey is catching a lot of heat, and is deservingly so, because not on that, Embiid, he has another year left on his deal, the other deal, and then the extension kicks in. So you have him 4 more years, and then you got Paul 3 more years. And let's face it, Maxey was supposed to go back to being the third option type of dude. You know what I mean? Now Maxey is the most consistent in the star of the team right now.
Right.
So, yeah, the front office has to catch heat for that. It has to. It has to.
Yeah. And the point that you make, Keith, when I asked the question, and the one that I, from the very beginning, was looking suspect at this, was Steve Ballmer has never shown any hesitation to cut checks. None. He's one of the few owners in the NBA that if someone said this owner is going to pay this incredible amount and overpay for this, that, and the other, and you say it's Steve Ballmer, it's like, okay, well, that's what he do. When he is like, let's pump the brakes a little bit on bringing Paul back, that to me would have been like, there's no way in hell I'm signing this dude. Because if the man who is willing to pay the most money is just like, nah, we good, and didn't have a clear plan B, at that time, you can't go all in the way they did on him. And Daryl, I mean, and Keith, you've covered this team for a while now. It's not like this was the one and only hiccup. I mean, there's a long line of missteps that they've made. That, to your point, Keith, the Embiid situation, it's not just going to set them back the next 4 years. This is going to have a domino effect because they can't move him. There is no way that anyone is going to take him unless he, asks for a buyout and they save some money down the road that way, and someone else is going to benefit from him because they're not going to pay him what he's making now. So they're kind of screwed, and Daryl has a lot to do with that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna tell you this. So whenever you do stories right now, we all knew, and again, Paul George is I like Paul as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Good dude. He type of also one of them guys. See you, hey, what's up, man? This and that. But when they got him, and you look at how he played last year, like the statistics and all that, and you were saying to yourself, like, this is the perfect fit for the Sixers, right? Now, again, he had the injuries and all that. But I remember it like clockwork. It was November the 6th. We go to they have it's the game. It's the morning of the shoot around before they play the Clippers. And I remember that 2 days before that they spoke in the it was after the game. Everybody's on deadline. I wanted to ask him about coming back to LA to play. He's like, sure, let's set something up for tomorrow, whatever. Well, they canceled practice. So the 6th we get there, and it's the media, all of like LA. You know how LA is like Boston. They got a whole big old media, contingent. And the way that they were posing questions and the way that he was answering it, it let me know that it was all about the Clippers not wanting to bring him back. Like if the Clippers would have like made a better offer or would have done something, he would have stayed. And it was kind of sad because, in Philly, it was one of them things where we're like, yo, they stupid. Everybody like, yo, they this and that. And then you listen to it and it was like, yeah, I have no hard feelings. I know it's a business, this and that. You're like, you mean no hard feelings, right? You know what I mean? So they just like, yo, it's like, dang, dude. And it was different. And it really hit you how real it was, man, that, and then now you look at it and you feel bad for him because he has a hard time getting by people, man. Now, I wonder if it's the left knee, if it's the groin, whatever. But it's one of those things where you looked at it when James Harden was here. Mm-hmm. If James took 3 days off, that 4th day he would come back and he was giving it to you. But then if he played 3 days and 4 nights, man, that game, James couldn't give you anything. So that's when you realizing like that's the difference from being an old head and a young boy. Young boys can play day in and day out. I don't know if Paul we'll find out next year if he comes back healthy. But right now, that's where the struggle is, And then another thing is, and I know you didn't ask this, I just feel like a lot of star players come to Philly and have a tough time coexisting with Embiid because it's completely different. You go from handling the ball to when he plays, you don't get a lot of touches. So, this isn't a good move by Daryl Morey. I mean, it's going to be something that's going to, and I don't know if he'll get fired just because the guy owns the risk, the Commanders too. And, that's a lot of money you got to pay out.
Right.
But he kind of set the Sixers back.
Yeah. And I want to end our conversation on a positive note. The Sixers added Lonnie Walker, a guy that folks around Boston are very familiar with. And many of us are a little surprised that they didn't keep Lonnie around because Lonnie was balling when he was here with the Celtics. And the Celtics, it seemed as though they could have used another guy scoring off the bench, but they decided not to bring him back. What is the expectation for Lonnie Walker in Philly? Because, I mean, it seems like from an opportunity standpoint, he's walking into a very good situation when you talk about Paul George and just some of the other injuries that the Sixers are dealing with this year.
Yeah, I think it's a great move for them, and I also think like let's think it's a win-win move for the Sixers and for Lonnie, right? So whereas what I mean by win-win is they'll get him in here. He got a 2-year deal. The second year is a team option. So they'll have him play these final 28 whenever he gets over how many games it is, and you get to see what he can do. I look at it more or less as a move for the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you look at it, what they did is they got rid of Reggie Jackson, and they got a young point guard out of Washington, who they converted him to a two-way. I look at Lonnie could be, moving forward, depending on what they do with Eric Gordon, he can take kind of sort of that Eric Gordon role coming off the bench. This is how you solidify your bench, so to speak. But I feel like he's a guy who the people in Boston love him. But you know what? He played AAU ball for a team final, right, in Philly, which is an elite Nike one. So everybody's familiar with him. He's from Reading, which isn't that far away from Philly. So for him, this is kind of like sort of a homecoming that a lot of people have been looking forward to. And to be honest with you, a lot of people in Philly wanted them to draft him in 2018. And then whenever he was getting traded, everybody's like, y'all need to bring Lonnie back home. You need to bring him back home. So I think this provides a great opportunity for him not to be a starter, but to be a key guy who can come off the bench and provide depth and provide scoring off the bench for them. So I really do like that pickup.
Yeah, and it gives you something different to write about, and it gives the fan base something different to focus on. Because I mean, just being around Philly fans, I know how y'all are. I love y'all. And Keith, I've gone almost 30 minutes and then said, "What about my Eagles?"
I know. I'm glad you didn't.
but you wore the Eagles colors, so we cool. But no, Lonnie's a good player, and the fact that he's got those tie-ins, and there's just it just makes a lot of sense for them to really try to give him every opportunity to show what he can do. Because again, when he was in Boston, people loved him, they loved him because he had a clear job when he got in the game, and that was to get some buckets, and he did that. The only thing that really I think was problematic for the Celtics was that because they have already just stormed past that second apron, bringing Lonnie Walker back was going to be a fat price tag, like $6-7 million if you were making minimum money. It's insane how much they would have had to pay for him, and for a guy that wasn't even going to play a lot. Because if they got everyone healthy, he might be that ninth man, maybe. But in Philly, he's got a chance to play, and he's got a chance to really do the damn thing. So do they have a target as far as when they think he might be around to play, or are they still kind of waiting?
Yeah, I don't know yet, just because, what happened yesterday. It seemed like to me that his agent played it well, right? Because at first he was like, oh, we're going to stay. And then all of a sudden, nope, we're coming to Philly. We're coming to Philly. So you have to imagine that is a plane ride. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised I don't know if when they play the Celtics on Thursday, that might be quick, fast, in a hurry. But I would expect for him to play against the Brooklyn Nets on Saturday. Like I would expect that. But, my only one concern I would say about this moving forward, and I do like it, but the thing is, you have Jared McCain, who had that role too, as getting buckets. So how are you guys going to have these two guys coexisting right now? Like maybe is Jared McCain going to be in the starting lineup? So what does that mean? Does that mean Kelly Oubre moves to the 3, PG moves to the 4? You know what I mean? But right now, that's a good problem to have, so to speak. And you also want Yabusele to come back and provide scoring as well. So, it's a good problem to have, but at the same time, they are like similar guys that you have roles for. You want them to come in and get buckets. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've been real happy to see Gershon get some run because he just never caught traction in Boston. But you can see there were signs that he could be a pretty good player in the right situation. It seems like he's found that situation with the Sixers. So I'm looking forward to seeing him play. In a couple of days in Philly, as well as hopefully Lonnie Walker. Although I will say this, if Lonnie Walker plays, he's going to play well. Because that's what anyone that used to play for the Celtics do when they play the Celtics. They play their ass off.
Oh, yeah. And they admit it, too. They like, I had to go at them.
Exactly. Well, listen, that's it for this episode of the Big 3 NBA podcast. Keith Pompey of the Philadelphia Inquirer, thank you so much for your time, brother. Again, good luck to you in all the stuff that you do. I know your plate is going to be full as always, dealing with Joel and all drama that Joel and brings to the table. So keep doing what you do, brother.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sorry for coughing, y'all. I'm just getting over this flu. So
Man, but Keith, but here's the thing: you showed up, and that's a lot, because there's a lot of folks that we deal with at work around. They don't show up. So
that's true. All right.
All right, brother. Talk to you soon, Keith.
All right, peace.